Hey guys, alright, back with another video, and today's video is going to be on the Maco V58 or the V5000. So, been wanting to do this video for a while. It's one of my favorite antennas for CB, and if you see some of my old video gates from like 2010, 2012 or so, that's what I was running, and that antenna is a great performing antenna. So this video is going to be pretty comprehensive of all the different things, the nuances, and things I've, in regards to the Maco V58 or the V5000. So without further ado, okay, so the specs. Okay, so it's a 5/8 wave ground plane. You guys might already know this stuff, but I just want to go over this in case somebody new and you want to, you're considering getting an antenna. It's aluminum 5/8 wave ground plane antenna. Has around 5 dB gain. It's tunable from around 26 to 33 megahertz, which means and I think you could probably get it down into the 12 meter band, but figure it's pretty much useful for either the 10 meter or 11 meter band. There's two versions of it, the V58 and the V5000. The two versions are just, one's rated for 1200 watts, the other's rated for 5000 watts. The overall length around 21 feet when tuned for 27 megahertz. So the CB band, it's around 21 feet long. Figure if you tune it for 10 meters, it'll be a little shorter. The longest radius, so it's 9 feet radius, which is like 18 feet across because of those ground radials. It weighs around 10 pounds. Wind survival 90 miles an hour, and surface area around 4.5 square feet. Okay, so what's the difference between the two? There's a V58 and there's a V5000. The main difference is the power handling, 1200 watts versus 5000. Here at I went to Walcott Radio. The price difference is $210 versus $162. That's a $48 difference in price. So what are you getting? What is really the difference? So doing a little research, the only difference that I could see is that the insulator used is nylon versus Teflon. So the Teflon version is the 5000 watt version. So if you look at their parts inventory, you go to macoantennas.net, their website, they have a special parts for you could actually buy, if you wanted to upgrade your say you had the V58 and you wanted to upgrade it to the V5000, you can get part number BA5P for $48, and you could upgrade it, change it out, get that Teflon insert instead of the nylon. Now mine, when I bought mine, it was the picture on the far right. That is my antenna, the black nylon. That was what it came with. It was the only one available at the time. There was no V5000 antenna 20 plus years ago. I've been able to run legal limited into that thing all day long. I never had an issue. So when they rated it at 1200 watts, I think they're being a little conservative. I think they may have lowered it because of the coming out with the V5000 model. That's just my observation and opinion. I put their phone number and contact there. I'll give a shout out to them. I gave them a call in regard to something else, and they were excellent on the phone. They answered the phone right away, and the person I talked to was very knowledgeable, and their customer service was on point. So shout out to them on that. Thumbs up for them. Okay, now this slide I think you guys are really interested in. I've done a bunch of testing with other antennas, right? The Antron 99 and IMAX, I did quite a bit of testing. And so when it comes to signal, we all care about CB band especially. We care about getting the maximum signal out. So the Maco V58s actually did outdo the IMAX 2000 by a little bit. It's negligible. It's so little that, okay, so if you look at this slide, you may not see it. If you're on your phone looking at this video, it might be hard to see. You may want to watch this on a bigger TV. But the Antron 99 was way down compared to the IMAX 2000. In other words, it was like an S8, and the IMAX was an S9. This is testing at like 30 miles away with a remote station receiver radio to get the signal readings. The V58 was like a little into the red, and it was like flickering between S9 and flickering into the red. It was so close. Now it is a little stronger, but it's so small of a difference. I wouldn't upgrade from an IMAX 2000 to a Maco V58 for that reason, is my point. But if you have an Antron 99, I would definitely upgrade to either the IMAX 2000 or a Maco V58. That's kind of the takeaway, in my opinion, on this. So If you already have the IMAX 2000, probably not worth upgrading. There's other reasons you may want to upgrade, which I'll actually cover more in this video. Okay, now the next slide is about the SWR testing. If you know in my other videos, I did a lot of SWR testing. The big thing with the Maco is significantly higher Q antenna. I think that, which means narrower RF bandwidth compared to, say, the IMAX 2000 and Antron 99. That could be a plus or a minus depending on how you look at it. If you're if you're a ham and you want to talk 10 through 17 meters, or up to 20 meters maybe with an external antenna tuner, but figure in radios like the ICOM 7300 have a built-in antenna tuner with could withstand a mismatch of up to about a 3-to-1 SWR. So then, you could go through 10 through 17 meters with your 3-to-1 or better and still stay in tune with an Antron 99 or IMAX 2000. But with the Maco, with its high Q, it goes completely out of tune past 15 meters. Like, 15 to 17 meter band, forget it. It's completely out of tune and unusable. So if you're a ham and you want to talk on the other bands, forget it. Do not get a Maco 58 for that, very purpose at all. Do not get it. Go with the IMAX 2000, or I'd recommend the IMAX 2000 over even the Antron because of the gain. It has more signal, significantly better signal. It's worth upgrading. Yeah, so the higher Q could be a good thing, could be a bad thing, depending on how you look at it. I think if you're a CB only operator, I definitely actually would recommend the Maco over the IMAX for the higher Q. And it's like, well, what are you talking about this Q thing? Okay, so let me go over what Q is. If you're not familiar with what an antenna Q is, Q refers to this quality factor. That's what the Q stands for. It's a measure of how sharply tuned the antenna is to its resonant frequency, kind of like as a percentage. And I kind of calculated it here based on my other SWR testing. The Antron 99's Q was around 13.5. What that really translates to is from its center frequency of 27.22 megahertz, it was able to go plus and minus up to 2 megahertz away from that. So that's 7.4%. The IMAX 2000 was 12%, which is really broad-banded. And then the 5/8 was only just around 5%. So you can't even go, I said you can only go about 1.3 megahertz before the SWR gets worse than 2-to-1. And it's like, okay, so, but you see the performance didn't really make that much difference. It was a little stronger signal, but not that much. So Q doesn't necessarily have to mean that it makes your signal much stronger. It just means it's more narrow and more, say, more resonant, really resonant on that main frequency, the center frequency, more than being broadbanded is kind of what it comes down to. Now, what are the benefits? Now, shout out to Scott's Radios. So Scott's Radios, he's got a YouTube channel. He sells a lot of radios. I actually got one of the radios from Scott, so thank you, Scott. He had a good video I saw on his channel that he was doing one actually on an amplifier. He doesn't really do amplifiers, but I guess he came across an amplifier as a 1x4 1446 amp, and he was seeing how there's no filtering in these CB amps, and they cause all this, Now, you're normally thinking, oh, there's interference from the second and third order harmonics, like it would be ×2 and ×3 the fundamental frequency, like 54 megahertz and 81 megahertz. That's what we're used to thinking, right? And that's true. But these amps even cause spurious emissions below the fundamental frequency, which I didn't even think about. But he's shown this. I got a screenshot of this video, and he's shown a bunch of, garbage at like 14, 15 megahertz. So, that's, so you could even, be transmitting below the fundamental frequency with these, if you got a exported, radio and an amplifier with no filtering, it could be pretty messy. So a higher Q antenna can actually act as a bandpass filter, because it's kind of rejecting, with an SWR of 20-to-1 over the 20 meter band, it's worse than the IMAX. So there was is there a myth? Do Antron 99s and IMAX 2000 antennas interfere more than a 5/8 wave ground plane? Is that a fact or fiction? And I would say, actually, based on this, it's a fact. It is true. A 5/8 wave ground plane like the Maco is, and to be fair, any other 5/8 weight ground plane because it's the antenna design. You can go to Colossal, I-10K, it doesn't matter. They're all going to perform similar. The higher Q is going to reject other frequencies outside the CB band. So you're actually going to cause less interference with this antenna. It's possible. You actually possibly bleed over on yourself or neighbors less. Also interfering, say, on the 20-meter ham band less because of using this antenna versus an IMAX. It's actually potentially true for this reason. So there's actually other factors that might cause less interference by using this antenna, but that's one of them. Okay, next slide is going to be on the tuning. So I mentioned, I got the SWR to be pretty much centered on 27, pretty much right in the middle of the CB band, 27.17 megahertz. So that's pretty much right in the middle of the CB band, almost perfectly. Now my tuning was the length of the sections from the hose clamp all the way up to the overall length of the antenna from the hose clamp up, just past the insulator. Is around 239.5 inches or about 240 inches. There's two tuning variables with this antenna. There's the overall length of the antenna and then the ring. So the ring, where the SO239 bracket kind of went from the ring, you see in the picture there, I went around about 10.5 inches around before the wire attached. And that's where, for me, that's where it was. According to the manual, you can see there, it's saying to do it about, based on 27.0, about 248. And then if you do the math, it's kind of weird. They put 26 megahertz, put it at 249. That's kind of weird. 1 inch difference for a whole megahertz. I think that might be a typo. It doesn't even make any sense. But I found that about 240 inches was pretty good, and then you could tune the rest with the ring. So if you're going to put it together, maybe that's what I'd recommend. Hopefully that gets you close. And then the other takeaway is you will not get the SWR to match at all without the ground radials. So you do have to put the ground radials up, temporarily or whatever, or it just does not match at all. So you have to do that. Now here's a screenshot. So Maco has a YouTube channel. They did a good job posting a video on the assembly process and putting it together and how to put it together and the little nuances of the ring and stuff. So if you're buying this antenna and want to put it together, watch their video. It's pretty good. They're showing here the tuning. So it says adjust here. I don't think it really matters where you adjust the sections as long as the overall length is, for me it was 239.5. Doesn't matter which section you use. I actually was tuning the top section because it's the flimsiest. It's only a 1/2 inch diameter. I thought, my thinking was, I'd rather shorten that because that's the weakest part of the antenna. So I would put it down into the second section more. So that's just me, but I think either way it's fine. The one thing though that I want you to know though is, see the length in the picture, it looks like the adjustment length, the location's not that far from the ring, but it really is. It's like 6 feet away. So if you're mounting this antenna, say if you're up on a tower or where you can't get to it above, you forget tuning it again based on the length of the antenna. So I think you should get it close and then do your final tuning on the ring. You might, because for me, I was on my tower, I couldn't get to adjusting the overall length of the antenna again. The only tuning I was left doing after it was installed was the ring, because that's the only thing I can get to. You can't adjust it. So keep that in mind. Okay, next slides are going to be about the hardware. Okay, so this is a common complaint with this antenna. Poor quality hardware. So yeah, they should be stainless steel. I mean, come on, guys. Come on, Maco. Now their counter argument to that is, we're trying to keep the cost down. You can go out and source your own, and I guess that's fair. But I would think, how about just charging $5 more for the antenna and just having stainless hardware in it? But this antenna, I'll say, I believe, this antenna is 20 plus years old, and I clear coated it, but it's been, years, and so some of this stuff is rusted. But my tip, if you do buy this antenna, is once you get it, go to the hardware store, get some stainless steel hardware to swap out with it, and also clear coat the antenna before you put it together. Just get a can of clear and just paint the thing a bunch of coats. What does it hurt? for us near the coast, aluminum gets oxidized like really bad. So we pretty much, as a given, we paint the antennas. But even if you're not near the coast, it just, it'll make the antenna last a lot longer. The other thing is these clamps are just garbage. I mean, if you've dealt with these clamps, the problem is with these, they really dig into the element, and when later on, let's say 5 years later, you can't even separate the sections. So you can see my gnawing, the marks on the smaller section there in the picture there, me, with a vice grip trying to get the section out. The other thing is, if you've ever dealt with these antennas after they've been, out in the weather for 10 years, you can't unscrew the thing. It'll just rip off. It'll just rip apart. Because it's rusted. And so my alternative, what I do is I throw these things away. These things are crap, anyways. I drill the hole. I mean, figure you only need to tune one of the sections, right? So I drilled holes and I ran a 1/4-20 stainless steel bolt with a lock nut, with a nylon lock nut. And I don't even cinch it down super tight, just snug, so it doesn't squeeze the section together. So I could then later on take it apart easily. So this is my suggestion on some improvements with the antenna in that regard. A couple other things a little weird with the antenna. It says, okay, so the instructions there, a screenshot, it says 1 1/4 inch OD mast, not included. You have to have a 1 1/4 inch mast that goes inside the antenna. If you use 1 inch, then the problem is it'll be tweaked a little bit when you cinch down that clamp. Figure it's going to be pushing, and it's going to have a 1/4 inch of movement, right? That's going to be where the clamp is to push itself, towards it's going to tweak it a little, and you're going to multiply that tweak by 20 feet, it's going to be like 1 foot crooked by the time you get to the top. So you have to really get a 1 1/4 inch mast. So you're kind of limited to a 1 1/4 inch mast. So that's good, I guess, if you're okay with a 1 1/4. But what if your push-up pole is a 1 inch, at the top piece, or you have a tower, and a lot of towers we use a 2 inch mast, right? We have a thrust bearing, and you got a 2 inch mast, so you can't even use it either. So you're left using U-bolts. So you can see in the picture on the right there, I'm using U-bolts, but you don't have a lot of room. Just below the ground plane kit, you have only maybe 6 inches of room to put U-bolts. So it's a light antenna, so it works. But just saying, I wished it was a little more, maybe a foot. And you can see as comparison to the IMAX there, IMAX 2000 on the right, there's about a foot spacing between the U-bolts. So that's a little better. But my thing was, I got either one of these antennas I had a 2 inch mast. The spacing on the Solarcon IMAX 2000 wasn't 2 inches either. I couldn't even get, I think it's 1 1/2 or 1 3/4, the U-bolt spacing. So I couldn't even get a 2 inch, I couldn't even mount it on the 2 inch mast either. So what you're winding up having to do with both these cases would be to get a 1 1/4 inch mast, let's say cut it, a short piece, maybe 2 feet, and then U-bolt, that to another pole. So it's kind of quirky, but it's just something that's, you have to deal with this antenna. Okay, and my final slide here is and I'm going to show the pros and cons against the IMAX 2000, because that's to me, that's very similar. It's like, now when I say Maco V58, it probably applies to some of the other 5/8 wave antenna manufacturers. That type of design could be, it doesn't matter that, let's say, for example, the Colossal i10K. It's also going to have a higher Q. It's a 5/8 wave ground plane. The performance is going to be pretty much identical. So because it's a 5/8 wave, it doesn't matter who makes it or if it's beefier design or not, or it handles 10,000 watts. It's a 5/8 wave. The performance and the Q characteristics and the radiation pattern characteristics and the gain characteristics are going to be the same, regardless of it's a 5/8 wave. It's a 5/8 wave. But the IMAX is a different, it's a different design. It's not exactly the same as it's not a 5/8 wave ground plane. I won't go into great detail about that, but Okay, so the comparison. Okay, so you got the pros over an IMAX, the Mako, using a 5/8 wave ground plane, the higher Q. It's a narrower RF bandwidth. You could actually cause or have less interference because of that. So it's kind of nice. Now the con also could be higher Q, narrower RF bandwidth. So forget using 10 through 17 meters. If you're ham, don't get this antenna, unless you want to talk only on, say, 10 meter band or 10 and 11 with an antenna tuner. Slightly more gain, I'd say, yeah, a little nudge, a little more gain. Now, not as easy to tune. That's a con. Yeah, not as easy to tune. The IMAX is so simple. I mean, you just put these sections together, 3 sections together, maybe put the ring like maybe 4 threads up, and you're done. I mean, you don't have to do. It's so easy. You don't have to do it. You don't even have to have an SWR meter or nothing. I mean, you just put the antenna together, put it up, it's done. I mean, it's amazing. So, I'll say, especially if you're pretty new to the hobby and you don't want to mess around, you just want to talk on the radio and throw an antenna up, get the IMAX. It's fine. Other things, higher power handling. I put that there, but I don't know. I mean, I think the IMAX handles quite a bit of power too. And I've never been able to burn either of them up, but I want you guys' feedback. Have you guys, anybody burn up one of these? I mean, let's say maybe the IMAX. How much power did it take to burn up? I've ran legal limit 1500 watts on sideband. I've ran a kilowatt carrier, dead carrier on 10 meter FM without any issue with either of these antennas, the IMAX or the Mako. So, another pro I think of the Mako, if you've installed these, you'll find that the IMAX gets kind of crazy, like wobbly. I call it like the wobble of death. It just starts getting super wobbly on you. And I don't even think it's because it's a little bit longer than the Mako. It's just that it's kind of like flexible and it wobbles. Where you put together the Mako and you could tilt it up and it doesn't do that on you. You could manage it, and it's probably a pound or two lighter, but it's just so much easier to, like, let's say, turn from horizontal to vertical up. So if you're up on like a tower, you're putting this up, it just seems more. It's just easier to handle. So that's just my experience. Okay, some of the other cons. You can see the con list is pretty long. Now, are these deal breakers? They may or may not be. They might just be being a little bit, they may not matter. Okay, so not as easy to tune. Definitely not. More delicate, can get out of tune. So that ring, imagine if you put your Mako antenna up at 100 feet on a tower, and then a big fat bird sits on that ring and tweaks the ring and gets it out of tune on you. You know what I mean? Like, it's vulnerable to getting out of tune, or let's say the ring got, you bump the ring or something, it could get out of tune pretty kind of easily. I mean, definitely compared to the IMAX, pretty much it stays. So that's something to consider. Assembly more difficult. I mean, and that goes along with not POTA friendly. What is POTA? That's parks on the air. That's something the ham guys do. We do. So parks on the air. I mean, you could just take this antenna like IMAX. You could just disassemble it within 2-3 minutes. The 3 sections. Just take it apart, throw it in the back of the truck, and then take off with it. I mean, it's put it together, take it apart, back and forth. Super simple. The IMAX, you can't. I mean, the Mako, you can't be doing that. That ring, the way I see it, you only have so many ups and downs and tweaks before something breaks. You know what I mean? That aluminum, can eventually take so many corrections, if you will, before it eventually fails. So forget doing any POTA with a Mako. Poor quality hardware. It's not the end of the world. You can go out and buy some stainless steel hardware, paint the antenna clear, or something like that. But you gotta, it's not just out of the box friendly. I think you do have to go, buy some hardware. That's not perfect. Not as streamlined. I got that twice. Not as streamlined. When it comes to aesthetics, now we like the way a Mako looks. Us radio guys. But let's face it. A big old antenna like that, compared to like an IMAX, you could hide it. It's nice and vertical. You could, kind of hide it in a tree. It doesn't require the ground plane to be tuned. So, that's an advantage, definitely for the iMacs. And as far as price goes, they're very close in price. They're within just a few dollars of each other, so that's not really a difference. So the picture there, that's Thomas Sowell. Thomas Sowell, the famous philosopher and economist, says, "There are no solutions, there are only trade-offs." So I figured I'd quote him because it kind of fits for this when it comes to antennas or anything in life. So anyway, I hope you guys liked the video. Anything that you saw in the video that you think was incorrect, definitely let me know. And anything that, like, feedback, we're all here to help each other out, and that's the point. So let me know, and if you have anything in the comments, I'll put it in the description notes if something was incorrect, or so I can correct it. All right, thanks again for watching, guys. Take care.